most of them weren't taught in medical school how to speak to the press, and
yeah,
nurses aren't taught how to use a camera. How do you train them? What are the challenges, and how do you overcome it?
I think the first step is to kind of quickly sort who are going to be your mostly, you have your faculty who are eager to do it. You have some are more adept at it and better at it. So I think you have to quickly triage who your bench is. And he's absolutely right. This is definitely infectious diseases year to shine. And before I went to work for St. Jude, I didn't realize how deep of a bench of infectious diseases experts St. Jude does have. And it's really fortunate because and we, through the flu season, we would often get a certain amount of coverage. So I knew a good bit of the infectious diseases people, but gosh, we have a deep bench. And then our St. Jude Global office has their own infectious diseases sub-team. So we're really loaded for bear. So it's really, you have to figure out who's the best. And then within, it's not like, oh, they need an infectious diseases expert. They're all the same. There's subspecialties within. So you've got to figure out which ones are the clinicians that are really have good patient stories. You need to have the researchers, and then within the science, and there has been, I should say this, there has been an elevated interest in science and like getting into the weeds of science, because here's this thing that's bedeviling the planet. And we've got to figure it out. So I think Joe and Jane, everybody reading or watching, more consumer focused news or top tier consumer media, just the level of science that I used to only see in trade publications, really getting into the weeds of cytokine storms and all this stuff, was really in the trades. And now you're seeing that stuff in the consumer press. And I just think it's because people are fascinated with science. So from the St. Jude perspective, we have just been overrun with media opportunities almost without proactively pitching. It's just been a matter of triaging them, figuring out who is the expert in which particular piece of the given science, and then just carving it up as best you can. And obviously, right? And coaching them, the ones who will let you coach them.
Going to the doctors, I think a little bit was being able to communicate with them separately and say, how are you feeling? Obviously at the height of this in March and April and May, to ask them to pull out of a room and do an interview just may not be possible. And we noticed a few times that we might have been using the same people. So our PR team tried to come up with a way to list out who we were using, what time, a schedule of sort of what we were booking. And we can see that if we use Dr. X one too many times, we got to give a break for them. And I just think having that side conversation with them as well, to say, how are you feeling really? Can you handle it? Can we go to someone else? Who do you suggest we could go to separately if you can't make this interview? And then going from there. And then I joke, it's kind of like collecting baseball cards. I'm actually now starting to meet some of these doctors face to face as we're going back to the hospitals with some filming and interviewing. And it says, I've been talking to you all pandemic. We've been texting, we've been emailing. It's finally good to put a face to a name. So you look to them to also suggest who from their team could also handle some of the requests, and then some of them just give proper feedback. In a sense, your doctors are your talent. And a lot of them look for the feedback. How did I do? What could I do better? And they take it and they run with it, which is great. And oftentimes I would do a little dry run, especially if it was breaking down what cytokine storms are. I would ask them to explain it to me a little bit, break it to me like I'm a kindergartner. It's the classic line, right? Explain to me like I'm a kindergartner, and we'll do a bit of a dry run. And I usually try to staff interviews if we can to kind of help with it, but it was just too much. We couldn't necessarily do that. So I would always check in afterwards with our doctors and make sure that they felt good and nothing seemed off, and go from there.
I would say we've had the most luck with our physicians and nurses in the COVID ICU, because they are pulmonary critical care, and ICU goes, I think, hand in hand with reporters. We're running everything is now. You're dealing with high stressful situations. People are coming at you with difficult questions, whether you're in the ICU or you're a reporter. So I think pulmonary and critical care physicians are hands down the best for COVID interviews. And you asked how we were able to get our staff to take video. Well, think about your nurses in the COVID ICU. What's like the average age for these nurses? Most of them are in their early 20s. Like, they've grown up taking videos on their phones. So literally all it was me sending a little cheat sheet of just, things I was looking for and things to have them avoid. And they were sending, texting them back to me right away. It also helps, and you guys know this from working in healthcare, just, having a great relationship with your nurse managers. Your nurse managers can make almost anything happen if you have a great relationship with them. And we have been extremely, extremely lucky with our nurse managers. They are willing to help with whatever. So I definitely, the COVID ICU has my heart, and they're a great group to work with.